officer, this man tried
I
to
never
eat your
thought a
mom.
day would
Why are you
come
trying
when
to
I'd go to
kill
prison
me?
for
It's
simply
to
being
save
a
you.
kind person and trying to save someone's
Trying to
life.
kill me.
But here we
You
are.
set my
The story of how
fire
that
on
happened,
fire.
oh, it's something that'll make your blood boil and your jaw drop at the same time. See, I just moved into this so-called perfect suburban neighborhood where everyone's lawns looked like they'd been drawn by AI, too neat, too fake. I didn't really know how things worked yet, but it didn't take long to find out that Karen was the self-proclaimed HOA dictator, judge, jury, and executioner of everyone's peace and sanity. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. Karen strutted around like she owned every blade of grass on this street. She had rules for everything: trash bins, curtain colors, even how loud your wind chimes could be. She bragged endlessly about her aesthetic home like it was featured in a magazine. Every time she threw a party, she'd say things like, "You can't fake elegance," as if she invented taste. I usually stayed far away from her until one day I noticed something I just couldn't ignore: her romantic candles, as she called them. Now, when I say romantic, I mean an absolute fire hazard waiting to happen. Karen had candles everywhere, lined up on the floor, windowsills, even around the curtains. She bragged about how soft and glowy her evenings looked. I tried to warn her, told her I had some experience in fire safety, that one wrong move, even a sneeze or a cat's tail swipe, could burn the whole place down. She looked me dead in the eye, smiled, and said, "Are you threatening me? Because I could fine you for blackmailing me under HOA regulations." I was too stunned to reply. I just said, "Good luck explaining that to the fire chief someday," and walked away. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that her obsession with those candles would end badly. I didn't know it yet, but that so-called romantic glow was about to light up more than her living room. It was about to light up my whole damn life in ways I couldn't imagine. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. Later the next month, it was a Thursday night. Quiet, too quiet. I'd just gotten up from the couch to grab a drink when I heard it. Muffled shouting, glass breaking, and then the kind of crackling sound you never mistake for anything else. I ran to my window and froze. Karen's aesthetic living room had turned into a full-blown inferno. Flames licked through the windows like the devil himself had moved in. My stomach dropped. The very thing I warned her about had just happened. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but I could already hear other neighbors outside screaming. That's when I heard it, her daughter's terrified cries. No time to think. I sprinted across the street, barefoot, smoke filling the air. The front door was locked, of course, because Karen was paranoid about burglars, as if the HOA would defend her property with divine power. I ran my shoulder into it once. Nothing. Twice. Still nothing. Third time. Boom. It gave way, and I stumbled straight into a wall of heat. The fire was angry, roaring up the drapes, melting plastic decorations, turning her romantic candles into pure chaos. I pulled my shirt over my mouth and went for the sound of the girl's voice. Found her crouched near the stairs, coughing, clutching a teddy bear half burned at the edges. I scooped her up, rushed her out, handed her to a neighbor, and turned back. Karen was still inside. Every instinct screamed at me to stay out. It was suicide. But I couldn't. I went back in, the air like hot knives, the ceiling starting to collapse. I found her on the floor, dazed, clutching a photo frame instead of saving herself. "Karen, we have to go," I yelled. She looked up, half-conscious, muttering something about her curtains. I dragged her out just as a beam fell behind us with a crash that could wake the dead. By the time we got outside, the street was lit up red and blue. Fire trucks, ambulances, chaos. I collapsed on the curb, lungs burning, sweat and soot mixing on my skin. I thought I'd done something good. I thought, maybe for once, Karen would drop her act and say, "Thank you." But I had no idea the nightmare was just beginning. The next morning, my body felt like it had been used as a punching bag by a tornado. But despite the pain, I was relieved. Karen's daughter was safe, and Karen herself was alive, though bandaged like a mummy and heavily sedated. Neighbors called me a hero. Even Officer Daniels, the cop who usually treated everyone like suspects, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You did good, man." For once, it felt like all the madness had been worth it. A few days later, reality punched me right in the face. I opened my door and found a man in a black suit holding a folder. "Are you Mr. Kelvin?" he asked. I nodded, and he said the words that made my soul leave my body. "You've been served." Karen was suing me. I stood there in silence for a solid 10 seconds before laughing, because surely this was a prank, right? But no, the documents were real, and her accusations were insane. She claimed I'd blackmailed her about her candles, threatened to set her house on fire, and get this, broke in to cause the fire myself to look like a hero. She even attached screenshots of our text exchange, twisting my fire safety warning into something sinister. When I went outside, my neighbors had already heard. Half of them looked confused, the other half just embarrassed for her. "She's lost her mind," Mrs. Ramirez muttered. "We saw you go in to help." Even little Timmy, who still wore Spider-Man pajamas outside, told me, "My dad said you're like a firefighter without the suit." But Karen didn't care. She'd left the hospital and was already marching around the neighborhood, bandages and all, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd tried to murder her. "He wanted to be the hero of his own story," she screeched to a crowd of gossip-hungry onlookers. "He's dangerous. He's obsessed with me." I couldn't believe it. I'd risked my life for her and her kid. And this was my reward. Lawsuits, rumors, and dirty looks from a few idiots who actually believed her. That night, I called my lawyer, and when he heard the story, he laughed so hard he nearly choked. "Don't worry," he said, still chuckling. "We're going to make her wish she never opened her mouth." Court day came like a storm that had been brewing for weeks. Karen arrived dressed like she was auditioning for a daytime soap opera. Big hat, sunglasses indoors, fake limp, and a neck brace she definitely didn't need. She even gasped dramatically when she saw me, clutching her chest like I was a ghost haunting her conscience. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "She's overacting. This is going to be fun." Her attorney, a nervous-looking guy who probably regretted taking the case, stood up and tried to paint me as some twisted arsonist. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, pacing, "this man threatened my client, blackmailed her, and then set her home ablaze just to play hero." Karen dabbed her eyes with a tissue every few seconds, sighing loudly for sympathy. The jury looked unimpressed. One woman even rolled her eyes. Then it was my turn. My lawyer stood, calm and collected, and began shredding their argument like a paper shredder on caffeine. He presented the neighbor testimonies, the 911 call logs, the fire department's report, all proving the blaze started from her candles. The jury's faces shifted instantly. The best part? The fire chief himself testified that Karen's candles were arranged in a manner highly unsafe and explicitly against residential fire codes. When he said that, my lawyer smirked like a man watching a slow-motion car crash. Karen's lawyer tried one last Hail Mary, but she couldn't help herself. She stood up, interrupted him, and started yelling, "He's lying! Everyone's lying! My candles were art!" The judge slammed the gavel. "Miss Karen, sit down before I hold you in contempt." That was the final nail in her coffin. The verdict came fast. Karen was found guilty of child endangerment, reckless endangerment, defamation, and false accusation. The courtroom buzzed. She was ordered to pay me $10,000 in restitution for defamation, $30,000 in court costs, and sentenced to 2 years in prison with mandatory parenting and fire safety courses afterward. As the bailiff let her out, she shrieked, "You'll regret this." I just smiled. "Already did," I said. The jury chuckled. Outside, the neighbors clapped as I walked free. Turns out, sometimes being kind does land you in court. But when karma shows up wearing a judge's robe, it's a sight worth waiting for. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.